WACT News begins now with breaking news.
A terrifying situation for passengers and workers at Wilmington International Airport. A man drove a car through the front entrance of the terminal. That man is now in custody. Thank you for joining us as we follow this breaking news. I'm Frances Weller.
And I'm John Evans. The TSA just confirmed with WECT that crash injured one of the TSA workers at ILM. WECT's Daniela Hankey live at the airport at this hour. So Daniela, do we know yet whether they filed any charges against this driver?
John and Fran, tonight we know he is facing federal and state charges. That's after deputies detained the driver. He is facing federal and state charges once again. Here's exactly what happened. A man drove through the fence line at the airport and onto the tarmac. The man then left the tarmac and drove his small car inside the entrance to the airport terminal before being taken into custody. We also learned that a TSA officer sustained minor injuries and was transported.
TSA, not far behind, started screaming, "Run, run, run." Everybody dropped their bags and started running to.
Now, the airport right now is open and passengers have been coming in, but departure flights have been delayed for tonight and even canceled. But of course, if you are flying out tomorrow, make sure to check your flights before heading out to the airport.
All right, thanks so much for that update, Daniela. And of course, Wilmington International Airport released a statement saying, and I'm quoting here, an automobile breached the airport. No one from the public was injured. New Hanover County Sheriff's Office responded swiftly, detained the individual, and is coordinating with partner agencies. The airport is open and had minimal impact to operations. ILM expects to be fully operational by the morning, end quote.
And as Daniela said, officials kept departing flights from taking off even though the arrivals did come in. Taking a live look now at the arrivals and departures for tomorrow morning. All of the departures at this hour are on time. But as Daniela said, it's always good advice to check your flight status before you leave for the airport.